Hello and welcome back to the free one.
It's the free one.
Yes, there it is. That's the voice that we're going to be doing about this forever, I suppose.
The voice you get for free.
Yeah, that's right. Al is here playing the part of the listener.
Yeah, I think the listeners like
the
it.
listeners here
You
also,
hogs.
the listeners are going to include half the staff at my dentist's, because I went to the dentist today and they asked me in like casual conversation, oh, what do you do for a living? And I panicked and I forgot to lie. And I said, I'm a podcaster. I do a podcast called Trashfuture. And so they said they were going to listen to it. And I'm so sorry. Please turn off.
Women saying their L's using their mouths in the dentist chair.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, hey, you know what? If you manage to find this place, this particular podcast from the search string, then welcome.
Yeah, that's right. But when you go to the dentist, it's not the free one, it's bonus.
Yes, that's right. Hey, none of that.
No.
Not on here.
Only at the dentist.
Only at the dentist. Look,
right.
We have a lot to get through today, so I'm going to jump right in.
Do you think it's not too late for me to change my name, flee town, and get a new dentist?
Yeah, you can get whatever you want. Especially now that the elections are coming up, and you have the opportunity to elect the Alba party.
Oh yeah,
I suppose.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You could get a dentist. I assume they'll have free dental care, not just a bunch of insane crank positions.
Only get it in Gaelic.
Yeah, they've got a manifesto for dogs. I mean,
okay, there you go.
If nothing else, I can get veterinary care.
A Scottish independence referendum.
Yeah, that's right. Replace my dentist with a vet. This is the Alba Party position, I'm pretty sure.
That's right. Good for the canines.
So, we're also a little bit late to this party, but did you all know that there is some drama afoot in Westminster, and Boris Johnson appears to have been on the wrong end of some rather unkind words and comments and revelations?
He's on the ropes. No. We're being told every day that he is on the ropes.
He now, on his 150th consecutive day on the ropes, his polling will slide at any moment.
That's right. It's one of those things. It's a bit like an ocean shelf. It it doesn't go anywhere and then it suddenly drops off.
I did find it very funny that when the whole bodies quote did happen, the poll came out the next day showing a +5 lead.
Hell yeah!
So British people love dying. We love it.
So here's
the whole coronavirus, everyone's a troop thing, right? I think that's so internalized now that when they do hear of a prime minister wishing you death, they're like, yes, please, murder me and make a poppy in my honor.
So for context, what's happened here is that a lot of the right wing press was reporting, I think, leaked pretty conclusively, leaked by Dominic Cummings, I don't care, that he said, I'd rather let the bodies pile high in their thousands, so he said it in a bit of a stupid way, than have another fucking lockdown.
Yeah,
and it's
stupid guy says stupid thing from a stupid guy position, man bites dog, least surprising thing ever, but the press decided this was the thing that was going to kill him. I don't know why, because Dominic Cummings terrifies them with a sort of Svengali-like thing that he does. And so they were all just he's finished. And the polls have not cooperated. He is not finished.
It's so funny to me that they think that the thing that's going to get Boris Johnson isn't the fact that he let 120,000 people die, but it's the fact that he had some awareness of the fact that that's what he was doing. As though when he was doing that just because he's a fucking idiot, that was fine. That was honest letting 120,000 people die.
That's
Coyote. Just what you do.
It doesn't count until he looks down and realizes that he's gone over the edge of the ravine.
Yeah. It seems like it's no one actually cares that he did pile the bodies high in their thousands.
Yeah, that happened.
He did it. But the problem is and what the media has been talking about is that he made indelicate remarks about it. Because this is Britain, and you if you're going to kill over 100,000 people with state neglect, more or less on purpose, you're not allowed to really acknowledge that you've done it. It has to be unsaid.
There's a whole British thing, isn't there? This whole like mythology that British people like to internalize of being very like well spoken and polite and kind of like, not crude unlike their sort of like European counterparts. But like this is never.
What are you trying to shake?
This has never been true. Like, so the whole idea of like, British people being very delicate with their words and sort of like dancing around things because they don't like confrontation, like none of that is true. But I think that like many things the press likes to internalize, I think they really internalize the idea of like, oh, this isn't statesmanlike at all, and like the British people won't stand for this. And it's kind of like, have you seen the guy that you're talking like in reference to? He could literally like shit on your child and you would still vote for him.
There was another example of this, right? Because if you're not aware, in France, a bunch of retired army officers have just put out a letter that's like, oh, you have to do more racism or we will do a coup d'etat against the government, because they can't stop forming the OAS every 10 years, right? But David Aronovich just did a fucking column saying, oh, this would never happen in Britain.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, do we remember the years of every fucking retired field marshal coming out to the Telegraph with, well, I mean, if Corbyn were elected prime minister, we would have to take steps.
Oh yeah, no, we would need to do our own years of lead, like, it's like Gladio but without the secret. It's just like, oh, well, we'll do a Gladio.
Like all the whole like soldiers practicing firing guns using Jeremy Corbyn as target practice, and how that was just kind of like shrugged off by much of the press, who still don't want to acknowledge how fucked up that was by just like, lads.
It was very sporting of Jeremy Corbyn to volunteer for that.
Lads
though.
having a bit of banter.
This is all very stupid, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because if a lot of newspaper hacks are saying, oh, this is very important, it's your key that it's not.
I think to see old Boris Johnson wriggle out of this one.
Nevertheless.
So it's very funny though, right? That like the problem as ever in Britain is it's never like 130,000 people killed by austerity. The problem is you're being rude by mentioning it. 120,000 people fucking turned into a fucking worm food by COVID. The problem is that Boris Johnson was mean about it. The thing is, he did more or less everything that liberal darling Andrew Cuomo did in New York.
But
it's
I welcome the government's
feeding
of the worms.
Yeah, that's right.
The worms need to be fed.
Anyway, I want to talk about one more bit of Westminster stuff, and then we will leave these statues in the reliquary where they belong.
Is it the soft furnishing stuff?
Oh, it's the soft furnishing things, which is only, to me, I only want to talk about like the Labour response to it, which has been just fucking inspired.
No, Keir Starmer is doing owns of Boris.
So I'll give some background here. What's happened is Boris Johnson is like improperly accepted a donation to like refurnish the flat above number 11 Downing Street. And like, again, everyone is in incredibly high dudgeon about it because unlike all the times where he's like, there's a whiff of impropriety or he's acted improperly, he's broken a hard and fast rule. And so everyone's like, oh, this is the end of Tory sleaze, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, it's a rule that he's in charge of enforcing, and B, who the fuck cares? Who cares?
Yeah, it's such a weird gotcha because it's like, okay, like he has technically broken a rule, but like, who gives a fuck? Like, it's only because the UK is the dumbest country on earth that like the Prime Minister has to pay for renovations to a government-owned apartment. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense anyway. Like, it's hardly like a great moral victory. Like, of all the things Boris Johnson has actually done, this is one of the most reasonable.
We got him on two equally bad things: killing 120,000 people and soft furnishings.
Yeah, turning up his nose at John Lewis.
Yeah, and like breaking a rule which when you explain it to people, they're like, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
It's very funny.
Why would that be the rule?
The John Lewis thing was the only thing he's bothered to deny. Was just like, oh, I love John Lewis, actually.
Yeah.
I love the idea that in Britain, we love landlords so much that, like, even when you're prime minister, the government is like your landlord who refuses to do up the flat that you live in. And you're like, can I please get some new curtains or like there's water drips? The government's like, no, you like it or you fucking find somewhere else. All right, mate.
Yeah, why don't you go be prime minister of another country then?
Well, I'll do it up myself. No, there's a fucking rule. Just try it, you slag.
Boris Johnson getting like dinged by £500 when he's done being PM.
Lose his deposit
because he put up a painting
as a mark on that wall.
Yeah. Oh, it was just like coming in being like, you hang that framed poster of the Choose Life speech from Trainspotting?
If only Boris Johnson
Did
was
you
that
hang
cool.
that Scarface poster?
Now, I would respect Boris Johnson if he built a huge Scarface
What do you mean,
poster with
if?
that money.
So here's the other thing,
And
right?
the weird thing was Matt Hancock had offered him all this tiny furniture for free, but he turned it down.
So here's the other thing, right? Is that basically now there is this whole thing of like, oh, he's broken an actual rule. Again, who cares?
He must resign. He won't, but he must.
Yeah, and like the worst thing that could happen is like what he gets
Morally, he's
a
resigned.
fine from the Electoral Commission over a process that he oversees. Like, who cares? But what's very funny about it is that Starmer's professional. Remember how the Labour Party was saved from its coterie of like trade union bureaucrats and like and other useless people by a team of slick professional communicators.
Do you remember that? Yes.
So what they've done is they've decided that in the same week that Boris Johnson's like, I'll kill a bunch of British people on purpose, and then having then killed a bunch of British people basically on purpose, the Labour Party decides that what they're going to do, in what I could only describe as the equivalent politically of like an insult in a secret fan-based language from the Japanese imperial court, had himself photographed going to John Lewis to buy some wallpaper.
Yeah, he's done
like,
an own of him in the language of flowers.
Got him. Rack him.
And the thing that fucking infuriates me is that all of the most annoying people in Britain are like, this is masterful politics. Boris Johnson is finished. And my main emotion seeing all of this is basically just vicarious embarrassment.
It's so fucking bad.
Well, I mean, like, I won't like take too, because again, like, I think this is like a nonsense thing to kind of spend too much time on. But again, it sort of goes back into like the psyche of like how the press operates, right? Which is the idea that like they've spent so long kind of relying on like access politics, and kind of they know that in order for their jobs, especially like in political correspondence, to be relevant, they have to kind of maintain that access. So in order to kind of like create stories or to kind of create myths, they have to kind of weave out these narratives that just sound very absurd to people on the outside, but kind of only make sense inside it as a way of like, negotiating isn't the right word, but in terms of like setting the definitions of what's actually going on. So if someone says, for example, that like Dominic Cummings is the kind of like mastermind leaker and stuff like that, everyone else has to kind of follow suit. And if they say that like Keir Starmer is playing masterful politics, like people like in the in that press section have to follow suit. Which is why you end up getting these very absurd kind of things where people like will kind of see Keir Starmer looking at like very boring and plain wallpaper or whatever, and kind of like do the cry laugh emoji, because they can't really accept the fact that like systemically, like it's not doing anything. Systemically, like the opposition doesn't really matter all that much, and like it had very little to do with Corbyn. And this whole narrative of like, you know, it was the Corbynistas which like created this alienated, polarized politics that Keir Starmer is trying to fix. Like that's not true, but them admitting it then tacitly means that they have to admit that like they've spent the past 5 years or so like not being able to kind of comprehend the type of like game that the Conservative Party have been playing on them.
And furthermore, it means that this wallpaper shit has to be meaningful, because that's the only thing left that can be meaningful.
Right. Yeah. If this is meaningless, then it means our jobs are meaningless, and that can't be true.
Oh, no. Not our phony baloney jobs. Yeah, so it's like,
how can this job be meaningless? My dad got it for me.
Yeah,
if
so
my
like,
job is meaningless, why do I get paid so much?
Yeah, riddle me that, hipster analysts. Anyway, all very funny to watch. And also the last thing before we move on is Boris Johnson's not unbeatable. Like, he is very much a creature of the press. If the press mount a sustained attack on him, he will probably fall before it, right? Like, it's not like he's Trump. He doesn't have like the Twitter feed and the independent cult of personality around him.
Yeah, he's not as cool.
The one trick that he's learned is whenever everybody says you have to resign, you just go, no.
Yeah, that's right.
He's
It turns
uncancelable.
out they can't make you.
Yeah.
Boris Johnson, the Nick Mullen of politics.
That's right. Anyway, I'm going to now.
Actually, I said that as a joke, but that is so fucking true.
House is transphobic.
So I'm going to move on to Election Watch 2021. Yeah, that's right. We're in Zelda. We've just opened up a chest and we found an election.
Up a fucking jingle just like that. All right, I had to go to the mental repertoire.
So there are elections coming up, and what we've done on TF is prepared a handy-dandy voting guide in case you live in Hartlepool or London.
Yeah, welcome to the two places in Britain. Indecision 2021.
That's right.
Aren't there local elections everywhere, or are they doing in London?
Also for viewers in Scotland.
Yes. That's true. Well, in Scotland, you have the Alba Party.
Yeah.
So vote for them, obviously. Cool guys. Actually, do vote for them. That would be very funny. Please do that.
Do not vote for them, or at all.
The position of this podcast is do not vote at all.
It's my position, kind of.
Yeah, we've gone reverse Democrat. We're like, you know what? Don't. I didn't vote.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can vote if you want to, but like, I don't know, if you have plans or you want to watch a movie, do that instead.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do.
Just listen to podcasts.
I'm going to wake up on the day, and if I feel like it, I'm going to go do it. And I'm going to tell you who I'm going to vote for after the end of this segment.
That's right.
So basically, there's a by-election, and sorry if you don't live in London. It's just that I do, and so I follow London politics a bit. I do want to talk about.
We do, so move here, I guess.
I do want to talk about. I do want to talk about some of the other local election candidates, if only because there are some very funny parties running, especially in Scotland, that I think will probably generate a lot of councillors who have like local news headlines attached to them for getting in like a stupid fight over some like a side yard thing.
Scotland.
Oh yeah, I mean, bear in mind the SNP can't maintain enough sort of internal discipline to prevent. Well, we've seen this before with texting that kid. Just hey,
Derek Mackay, the guy, the coolest guy.
Well, the thing that's funny about the SNP is that they're like a UKIP ass party that somehow became a mainstream party. But so like most of their politicians are like UKIP ass guys.
Yeah, they're just crazy guys.
They're just guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
like your dad, but he's like a minister.
So I want to talk about Hartlepool for a little bit. Mainly the fact that it's looking like there might be the third time in history that government's going to like lose a by-election in this kind of a year after being elected.
Mm-hmm.
Very funny to me,
but still,
doesn't matter. But it's very funny to me, largely because the candidate for Hartlepool was an MP that lost his seat nearby in 2019. So they were like, "Look, we can't make anyone new an MP. We have to pick someone who was already an MP. It's like a one in, one out thing. They can't pick any new people until they get everyone who lost their seats back.
Yeah, everybody has to get their job back.
Yeah, basically the phony baloney job we were talking about. But what I think is very funny is that this guy, Dr. Paul Williams, basically was taken on like a Potemkin village tour of Saudi Arabia in 2018. In 2018, taken into Saudi Arabia. This is 3 years. It's not like he went in like 2012 before MBS like took over and the war on Yemen really
locked
stepped
all
up.
His cousins in a hotel.
Yeah, before like Jamal
stuck in Marriott.
Before Jamal like Khashoggi or whatever. Like no, this was well after all of that was happening. He was like, when asked whether his perceptions of Saudi had changed after his state-sponsored visit, he said, "I said that my previous notions have been blown out of the water. I've seen a modern progressive Saudi Arabia that has totally changed my view of this country. Awesome. Why don't you be the MP for Neom, you dipshit?"
Well, I mean, he basically is going to be.
Effectively,
which is great. Because if there's one thing the people of Hartlepool really love, it's Wahhabist Islam.
That's right. I mean, like one thing I can understand is like how people like, especially how like dumb English guys would get very impressed with Saudi Arabia. Considering that like outside, I mean, like Saudi Arabia is a weird place because so much of it is kind of just like desolate and boring. And then you've obviously like got Mecca, which is kind of like very modernized, but still,
which has the cool.
But
box.
if you go to like places like Medina and like I guess there are other places like other kind of places in Saudi Arabia as well. Like it's like basically, they've kind of had the tourist push for a long time. It's basically just like a big theme park, right? So in the same way that I think there's a type of British guy gets very impressed the first time they go to Florida, because everything's so big and like they've never kind of experienced that before. I think they probably get the same type of thing from Saudi Arabia as well. So he's like
going to Saudi world.
So he's come back and like he's kind of thinking to himself that he's like probably thinking to himself like, oh, this is such like a great place and they have so many things to do. There's like so many American fast food chains there.
The water slide.
Yeah, there's a water slide. You can push this cool button on what appears to be like a really detailed video game where you play as like a bomber pilot. Yeah, so it's also like, oh, good. So this is sort of Labor's way of reassuring the country. Don't worry. If on the off chance you decide to stop ritually humiliating us and just give us power instead, we're going to make sure that those paveway laser guided bombs keep ending up in Yemeni weddings.
The whole like counter argument is that like actually the people of Hartlepool don't care about international affairs and they don't care about like the war in Yemen and everything.
Okay, so why this guy? Why him?
Because he's the only one, because he's got seniority. And we've got to give him his old job back.
Yeah, what are you anti-worker all of a sudden? He's a senior union employee.
That's right.
Anyway, so I think that's very silly. I think also, like, look, I don't like taking anything too seriously, but I think if the Northern Independence Party, like, yeah, if they can force Labor to lose that seat, then fine. That gives Labor a challenge to its left.
I mean, the other thing is the Northern Independence Party, I agree, are a joke now, but then the SNP were a joke in like my lifetime, like in the 90s even.
Yeah, UKIP were a joke. I mean, not everything.
And then they become an even worse joke, which is like a really bad idea that is now popular because we have such a paucity of ideas.
Yeah, I mean, you know what?
Putting your joke idea on the table, it will be there when, we, are grasping for ideas, having ruled out doing stuff like broadband communism.
Yeah, so like I'm broadly in support of them for that reason. Just because, yeah, fine. I mean, I don't know. Like, I would just also like to see.
I think what we have to do, and I'm pitching this to Milo now as like Northern Independence Party skeptics. What we have to do is we have to embrace Russian foreign policy, which is we have
that
to
is
like
right.
not
that is always right.
Not say sincerely, the Northern Independence Party are good, but what we have to do is we have to post the crying laughing emoji. We have to be like, oh yeah, the Northern Independence Party fucking rule, crying laughing emoji. And just sow a bit of discord just to like fuck around.
Yeah, okay, I can get on board with that. But no, I honestly think like if you are going to vote in Hartlepool, I don't know how many listeners we have in Hartlepool. If you are going to vote there, you might as well vote for the Northern Independence Party because, like I said, it would be very funny if the Northern Independence Party is the thing that forces Labor to lose, and the only way that can happen is if they get votes. So that's the only endorsement I will be making thus far for that reason. It's not an official TF endorsement.
We will be making another endorsement.
I will be making another endorsement. This is not an official TF endorsement. This is just a Riley endorsement. Look, I want to get to our real topic today, which is a man who's a favorite of mine. So let's talk about the London mayoral elections. So this is going to be coming out 2 days before the elections happen themselves. So let's just talk about the candidates. Sadiq Khan, who cares? Boring.
My dad was a bus driver. There is no credible opposition to me. All of the worst people in the world want to murder me all the time because I do, like, ineffectual social democracy.
Not even ineffectual social democracy, just, like, not nuking certain parts of the city.
I have a job that doesn't really have that much political power, and for this, like, because I'm the most prominent Muslim politician in Britain, and, like, in the Labour Party, it makes a bunch of people extremely furious, and now I have to have 24/7 police protection. That guy?
Well, I was surprised that British people are weird about the most prominent Muslim politician.
Yeah. But policy terms, his main thing is more of the same, but more cops. Okay. Shaun Bailey. Basically, the Tories realize London probably isn't where they should send their best, so Bailey should be understood in the same way as any Tory candidate for, like, Liverpool, in as much as he is the C team. His candidacy is largely for the benefit of people outside London.
I would disagree only in the sense that I think that what's happening, and you can tell with, like, Shaun Bailey's kind of promotional videos, that he's the candidate for Greater London, right? And like, you know, to understand like the London mayoral election, I think you do have to understand, but like inner London, which is often what's talked about when we speak about like issues to do with London, is very, very different to areas like Greater London where I live, where like
Hussein and I are in on this because we both are familiar with like
Bromley.
The existence of Bromley, of fucking Bromley, the London borough of Bromley. Yes.
Yeah. Shaun Bailey speaks for Chislehurst.
I mean, exactly. Like, yeah, like the London borough of Bexley, right? Where like Shaun Bailey will kind of win because Conservatives have won the London mayoral election in this area, like since its conception, right? But like what's happened here is that like I think the Tories like know that they aren't going to, like they had no shot with Sadiq Khan against Sadiq Khan anyway. So what they're actually doing is trying to kind of like integrate the London mayoral election into this like ongoing culture war, which is why like so much of Shaun Bailey's policies are kind of rooted around things like driving into the city, and like his kind of only his sort of like flagship policy, I think, is like beyond kind of like a lukewarm kind of distaste for like LTNs, which I don't think is quite like sincere anyway, is the idea that it costs too much to drive from Greater London into Inner London. And he used like this campaign video of him driving into like Trafalgar Square, to which like people were kind of responded like, who the fuck drives into Trafalgar Square? Like, who?
Not the point,
right?
It's a place
cool, guys.
Trafalgar Square is somewhere that you can, if you want to, drive into. Like the kind of parochialism. It's essentially like opening up the manifesto, and the sole sentence in there in like 140-point font is, "I'm going to stop BLM from renaming the Churchill Theatre in Bromley."
Actually, on the subject of Greater London heads, I bought my car from a guy in Romford. So if we want to take the temperature of people in Romford, he actually brought up Sadiq Khan to me and said that he would not be voting for Sadiq Khan, and then proceeded to describe for about 10 minutes an incredibly like niche and internecine planning dispute his wife was having with a commercial property that she owned, and that was why he would not be voting for Sadiq Khan. And I was like, hell yeah, dude's right.
He's going to turn the commercial building that the council keeps telling me I need to get like fire protection, so he's going to turn it into a mosque. But yeah, basically the kind of like short text about Shaun Bailey is that he's like talking to people who own multiple properties and people who own cars.
Yeah, I think it's also true though.
Like 6 people. Yeah.
I think it's also true that he's talking to people who don't live in London, because a big part of the Tories' appeal, and like, you know, the bits of England that are new to them, is being like, all of those like gay Antifa Corbynistas in London, we're going to trigger them all together. And so Shaun Bailey is a bit of also like a trigger the libs candidate as well. So I kind of see that all coming together.
He proposing like custodial sentences for cocaine possession or something mad like that?
Just various mad things. He was also proposing that like the homeless should save up £5,000 for a deposit.
Also,
to buy a house.
If I'm remembering correctly, more cops.
Yeah, more cops. Way more cops.
He wanted more cops than Sadiq Khan wanted more cops.
To be fair, the Tories these days are usually less cops. They're usually like, we can't afford cops.
We also have Count Binface, which I hate because it's the twee British nonsense that makes this country fucking unbearable.
What's his position on cops? Does he want more of them?
He probably has like a twee way of saying, like one of his main policies is that he wants to rename London Bridge after Phoebe Waller-Bridge, thereby leaving it the name unchanged. Awful. Yeah.
Oh, I really hate that.
Mm-hmm.
That's really upsetting to me. I thought he was a different kind of cringe to that, but no.
Nope, sorry, same kind. Annoying. I'm sure he also wants more cops. We have Laurence Fox, who we've discussed enough on this show, so I won't go into him too much detail, whose main thing is just like culture war. Like, I wasn't able to easily find a manifesto, even when I searched Laurence Fox manifesto on Google. Like,
well, there's this video that I saw of Laurence Fox when he visited, drumroll please, Bromley. And he set his camp outside of the Glade shopping center, which like is only relevant, is only relevant to Alice and me, in terms of like what it is.
God. And the entrance of the Glades in Bromley is the fucking hellmouth for London. All darkness emanates from the entrance to the Glade shopping center.
And like this was like one of the campaign slots where he was like talking about policies, and like there's a kind of 2-hour video that he's uploaded where like he's kind of meeting people, and it's like it's remarkable how many people like. So the two things were very instructive. It's remarkable how many people like came up to him and just started talking about their Twitter accounts and how they were like banned or restricted on Twitter, like almost immediately. for like things like, you know, and just the classical stuff like, oh yeah, I just said that I respect adult human females and my Twitter account got rejected, and Laurence Fox like has to stand there watching this like insane person talk about how much they hate Twitter and being,
wait, what do you mean? What do you mean has to? I think the word here is gets to.
Right. And then there's the other part where like people are trying to talk to Laurence Fox about like things that they feel are like problems in their city, right? Whether that's kind of like LTNs or whether, I think like in the case of this Bromley video, it was something to do again with like construction, like construction obstructions or something like that, and like making it difficult to drive around. To which like Laurence Fox is kind of like, you can see that he's struggling for an answer to this problem, right? So he like right, so like it's quite remarkable how he listened to this, and then he kind of goes on to, oh, you know, this is because like, you know, Sadiq Khan is too busy doing virtue signaling for BLM instead of caring about ordinary Londoners, and then he circles right back to Twitter, right? So all his stuff is literally like a grievance over the fact that like, you know, he's mad at Twitter for supposedly censoring him and his friends.
But he of the two posting candidates, he is the soy one.
Yeah,
he is the shitty lame one.
Cringe.
That is right.
Yeah, he's the bad post. We're going to talk about the good posting candidate.
What I do respect about Laurence Fox is how chaotic all of this rebrand of his has been. And like some of the, like you look at someone like Ben Shapiro, right, who like does the culture war thing, but he's got a strategy, right? Like Ben Shapiro, he picks his battles and he knows what's going to like engage his audience.
His brand is like he's on top of it, right? Laurence Fox is a pathologically divorced man.
Yeah, he's in way over his head. Like, he doesn't even know. He's there, like, a Shapiro would be at home talking with the nutters of Bromley, whereas, like, Laurence Fox is just, like, a big posh guy who's, like, doing this as a bit, essentially. And his bit has gone out of hand.
I think Laurence Fox genuinely believes it. I think he's sort of mad and kind of thought being mad would carry him further than it has. But we've talked about Laurence Fox too much on this podcast already over the course of the last year.
He also wants more police.
Yeah. Also wants more police. Shaun Berry, Green Party.
Police.
More police also.
Oh.
I'm detecting a theme.
Yeah. Every police officer gets a special crystal in their hat that encourages healing and redistributive justice.
The Greens are so funny to me because like they're sort of left wing, but also then they'll be like, yeah, well, we need more police because otherwise, who's going to issue you with a £5,000 fine when you put the wrong thing in the recycling?
If Laurence Fox is the entrance to the Glades in Bromley, then the Green Party are like shop selling driftwood reclaimed picture frames in Dulwich Village.
Oh yeah,
absolutely, and also like the. Let's say
it's got one of those like
policed
screaming things outside that drives off teenagers. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So Shaun Bailey, Green Party, more cops. Who cares? The only person I'm interested in talking about at length, the only one,
the only candidate who could earn our vote,
the London Real Party's Brian Rose.
Yeah, all the other parties.
He's the coolest guy.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the coolest one, for sure, by
easily.
far. Now, we are all on TF very familiar with the work of Brian Rose.
We are. We've read all of his books.
A guy you could basically just describe as Joe Rogan, but with like a reskin with Wolf of Wall Street DLC. Like, he's the same
he's a
thing.
Big, jacked old guy.
A perfect idiot.
Yes, he's into all that stuff.
Perfect moron.
Yeah. He is God's perfect moron. He loves ayahuasca, which is great.
Yeah.
He fully we'll see when we talk about his platform, which we will in detail. That he cares about all the stuff that stupid people care about.
He used to be a banker, right? Which is where he comes by the Wolf of Wall Street stuff.
He also basically believes in certain kinds of magic.
Yeah, because that's the thing. He got into like wellness YouTube, and so it's still on the same account. So the account that is now like him driving a bus around challenging Sadiq Khan to debate him. You go back a couple of years, and it's like him getting taught masturbation techniques by a kung fu master.
Yeah, it rules.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, so it's like basically this
and
guy.
We have watched those videos.
We have watched Brian Rose be told how to jerk off more effectively
and be really into it.
Yeah, we made an emote out of it.
Yeah. So look, here's a little bit of stuff about Brian Rose. He also is like, don't get me wrong, like he's a fucking insane person.
Yeah.
Where he interviews David Icke and lots of people who are like, vaccines are fake, COVID's fake, blah blah blah.
We're comfortable in embracing him because we are certain he cannot win.
Yes, correct.
He's used the word scamdemic, I believe.
I think he's interviewed people who have. Anyway.
He definitely said that London overreacted to the pandemic.
Very much so. Most of his platform is about that.
Yeah.
So there are a few themes that come up again and again in his platform, but one of my favorite ones is he wants to launch something called the Workout to Help Out program to encourage Londoners to get back to the gym.
Dude's rock.
Awesome.
I want that because I want to see him lifting weights next to Rishi Sunak and make him look like a pussy.
He loves breakdancing too.
He's a jacked guy. Like he's
huge,
muscular. And he has multiple videos of himself breakdancing on this YouTube
He looks
channel.
like a sort of Metal Gear Solid villain, Patrick Wyman.
Solidus Snake, Mayor of London.
Yeah, so I say he talks to many of the same people Joe Rogan does, like Jocko Willink or Wim Hof.
Wait, sorry, you just said some noises.
I'll explain later.
Jocko Willink and Wim Hof.
Yeah, one's a Navy SEAL, the other's like an endurance ice water swimmer.
This ice water swimmer, Wompty Dumpty Van Dom.
Yeah, and one always tells the truth and one always lies.
That's right. But he also, so like you said, he takes like jacking off lessons. He's drank his own piss twice, and one time he challenged Sadiq Khan to a swimming race, which was very funny.
Very Byronian vibes. If he won't be confronted on his record, will he swim the Hellespont?
So he's this American banker who's like 50 years old. He moved to London in the early 2000s for reasons we'll explain. He married a woman he met working at the Dolce & Gabbana store and then started a YouTube channel called London Real. And London Real's mission statement is
was
aiming...
he working at the Dolce & Gabbana store
No,
or was she?
she was.
Oh, I see.
He was
in there buying one of his big suits.
I guess so, yeah. He was in there buying a huge suit.
The suit game on this man, incredible.
Can I just say that, like, when I first saw him in his suit, it just reminds me of, like, first day of sixth form in, like, the grammar schools where you get to wear, like, a big boy suit for the first time. And it's always, like, obnoxious with, like, the big tie knot and stuff.
It's that, but with the body of like an action figure.
Yes,
he looks like he's in the anime courtroom show. I forget what that's called.
Harvey Birdman.
Yeah,
he's a lawyer.
He
Harvey
dresses
Birdman.
like Phoenix Wright.
Yeah. So anyway,
what I was going to say is, I don't believe that anyone shops at the Dolce & Gabbana. I feel like Dolce & Gabbana is a designer brand that people only purchase in TK Maxx. I can't imagine anyone going like, yeah, I really want some Dolce & Gabbana. I'm just going to go and drop $1,000 at the Dolce & Gabbana store.
Brian
Sounds
Rose,
like an
I guess.
ice cream.
In 2002, though, when it was cooler. Anyway, so this is from an interview in, I think, Metro. So his parents divorced when he was 7, quote, which freaked me out and taught me I had to be self-sufficient. The closest he came to an interest in politics was writing a letter to Ronald Reagan as a child. My mom said I could do anything, so I wrote Reagan asking to meet. He replied only with a photo of him on a horse.
Yeah, challenged him to a swimming race.
It was code. Yeah. It was code.
Yeah.
All the details were there, Brian. You just needed to piece it together.
What do the numbers mean, Brian Rose?
Speaking of horse, he then speaks about his experiences working as a banker in New York. He says, I'm too hard on myself and have high standards. In a place like New York, all sorts of drugs are there. Heroin became my drug of choice in my 20s, but I snorted it because I wasn't a drug addict.
That's how it works.
Yeah, if you snort
That's actually how it...
I mean, look, this is not sort of impugn heroin users or anything like this.
No,
but
this guy managed to make
Yeah.
doing drugs uncool.
Yeah. Why is he trying to soft pedal the heroin thing? That's the coolest thing he's ever done. I would be leaning into that hard. Like, yeah, I was on heroin for like 10 years. It was awesome.
While being a banker in the early 2000s.
Also, how do you be a banker on heroin? Though, like, cocaine is an obvious choice for a banker. Heroin strikes me as like, it's more of a like, I'm going to take a bath and maybe die kind of drug.
More of a nighttime thing for him.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Anyway,
the big like off button. Yeah.
But what I find really funny is he's like, oh, well, I wasn't a drug addict. I just snorted it all the time and then had an overdose.
Yeah.
Which is, again, a classic stupid guy opinion.
Yeah,
Just
most
like,
people
no.
actually get addicted to heroin, but I was mentally strong enough to not do that.
Yeah, so basically that's Brian Rose. He moves to London in the early 2000s to like get clean off of heroin.
Because he wasn't a drug addict.
No, but he did have to move to London to get clean off of heroin.
Yeah, but not in a way that would imply that he was a drug addict.
No, correct.
Just in a way that was like
In another
any
way.
person would do.
In another way that would imply
Yeah.
It's
that,
a regular
yes,
lifestyle change where you have to stop taking heroin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then he
that's
talks
right.
about how his favorite thing about London is going to all the graveyards because he's a manic pixie dream idiot.
Amazing. I want a goth mayor.
He's the coolest fucking candidate in this race by a wide margin.
By a very wide margin. So basically, he also says that if we manage the underground better, then the whole system could look like Heathrow Terminal 5.
Great.
Cool.
What, like one big building?
Yeah, well, I think I think he just really loves the tube station in Heathrow Terminal 5 and is like, damn, I wish they could all be like that. I wish it was all looked like the mall.
He also wants more cops, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
Dolce & Gabbana in the tube.
So I'm afraid the only reason we cannot give the official endorsement, the TF endorsement to Brian Rose, is that he does also want more cops.
The difference between Brian Rose and the other mayoral candidates is that while the other mayoral candidates simply want more cops, Brian Rose will be at the front line with them. He'll do jiu-jitsu on the criminals that they're chasing, and film it for his YouTube channel.
He's the most police abolitionist candidate because we don't have any candidates who want to decrease the number of cops or even keep the number of cops the same. Brian Rose is the one who wants to increase it the least because he wants to increase it by 1. Him.
No, so he does actually want to increase it, but I think about as many as Shaun Bailey, which is a few thousand more than Sadiq Khan.
The idea of the Greens pumping more money into the Met Police is so funny to me. Like a fucking electric police car doing donuts on a memorial to a woman they murdered, just being like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, the Greens didn't put a number on how many cops they want, but they were like, we need more cops as well. Everyone agrees on that. Anyway, so let's talk about some of Brian Rose. And Brian Rose also is at the helm of a number of questionable businesses, like the London Real Business Academy. Where you can pay several thousand.
About real business.
Yeah, you can pay over £8,000 for access to the quote inner circle, which is like a Zoom call with Brian Rose.
Cool. It's like dumb guy Scientology.
Yeah, effectively.
That's very fun. I love that. Scientology for himbos. L. Ron Himbo.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
So let's talk about his policies on an individual basis. The housing crisis. So he has one policy that keeps coming up again and again, which is to build a bunch of houses on land owned by TfL, which is above train tracks or around train tracks.
Cool. People love living there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He also says he wants to build 5,000 houses by Christmas this year.
Yeah. Look, when you
5,000 guys, one house each, they each get 6 months.
So look, apparently, and this is according to London.gov, right? TfL is a significant landowner. It owns 5,700 acres of land. It's not just train tracks, but it's related to trains and the development of trains,
the yards and stuff. I imagine most of it's not really suitable for residential housing.
Quite a bit of it actually is sort of greenfield. A lot of it is actually suitable for residential housing. This is not a crank platform. What's crank about it is that he's we're going to use a modular building technology to pre-build the houses out of shipping containers.
Yes.
Yeah, boy.
What is it with fucking shipping containers, man?
I don't know, but everyone loves modular houses.
Because the thing about there are really cool modular prefab housing technologies, but not using fucking shipping containers. There are people who can build a house for 70 grand and it's actually a nice house with and it's all made out of this prefab stuff, but not a shipping container's not designed for that.
But also your solution being we're going to use prefab housing and that's going to solve the housing crisis. There's nothing bigger about this.
No.
There's no problem with tenants' rights or rogue landlords. We're going to get a factory to build a bunch of houses and bring them over here, all of those American companies that work so well.
It's a classic dumb guy thing for why shipping containers, which is just we don't have enough houses. What do we have a loss of? What do I look out of my window and happen to see? Shipping containers. Those are cheap.
He works with Frank Sobotka.
Yeah, exactly.
Brian Rose went to Shoreditch Box Park and was neat.
Cool.
He is who Shoreditch is for. Every single venue in Shoreditch, he's oh man, I'm so spoilt for choice. The ball pit bar, the fake prison bar, the box park made out of shipping containers, the crazy golf where it's epic and you get drunk. Oh man, cool boy, how to choose.
What I think is very funny also, he has so many fun policies that we're going to talk about. Crime, lots more cops, but digitized.
And I'm going to say lots more crime.
Lots more crime. Well,
that'd be cool.
Lots more cops, but they'll be digitized cops. I looked into what that means, and unfortunately, it just means that he wants the cops to have paperless offices.
The cop chain. Paperless offices, eh?
Just 5,000 more new, freshly trained cops all bumbling around wearing Oculus Rifts, banging into each other.
Oh, he would love that. Because if there's one thing that reading this manifesto of Brian Rose's I've learned, it's that Brian Rose loves made-up technology that doesn't exist.
Well, so do we.
It would actually be cool, though, if he would put all of London's cops into a kind of like matrix where they're just in a virtual reality where there's only other cops.
The
and they're all
cop
just
dimension.
bumping into each other, going like, were you the gentleman saying to myself about the lady there with whom you were conversing earlier?
Yeah, that's right. So the other thing is very funny is he was like, I've identified new ways of funding additional police, but your mayor also needs to identify additional ways of funding community support. That's where my Companies for Communities plan comes in.
Oh, boy.
Oh, wow. Oh, hell yeah.
Companies prefer to operate in safe environments, and CEOs as well want staff to be based in an HQ that's a safe place to live and
We're going
work.
to give Facebook a gun.
No, we're going to make Facebook have a Facebook-owned community center. Yeah. So, because that's the other thing, most of the candidates have in fact recognized that the reason that crime in London is going up not that much, but it's going up year on year, as opposed to every other major Western city where it's been going down for the last 30, is essentially that we have stripped out all of the bits of society that make it legal to exist unless you are rich. And so, effectively, right, like, everyone has said this. It's just Brian Rose is like, what if we got Greensill to sponsor a youth center? Essentially, very funny. So he says you will basically So community services provided by Oscar Mayer. So what is the atomic weight of bolognium? Deliciousness.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
People have got to know that stuff, you know.
Here's my favorite of his platform planks, though, which is digital. So number one, he wants to treat the internet as an infrastructural human right, offering free high-speed broadband for all citizens.
Broadband communism.
Great policy. But also, on a global scale, freedom of speech is threatened by companies as much as governments. The digital megacorporations are happy to make billions from positions of power, but are also increasingly happy to abuse that power to censor digital communications. Acting as judge, jury, and executioner, they make their own rules about what we can and cannot say, violating human rights based on corporate policies on a seemingly daily basis. That is why I, as the mayor of Greater London, will fight for digital freedom of speech and take the Silicon Valley technology companies to task.
That's just saying the word. By saying the word. By saying gamer word.
I'm very sorry that the video of the Chinese man jacking you off was too hot for YouTube. I'm very sorry it got deleted.
Oh no, he's personally just mad that they took down his video of David Icke being like, yeah, coronavirus is fake, don't get a vaccine. Which is
coronavirus
cool.
is fake, unlike everything else David Icke thinks.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the lizard people stuff, that's been proven. The all of that proven. The coronavirus stuff, well, you're really out on a limb here, David Icke. I'm not sure I can follow you onto this.
Ever seen lizards and people in the same room?
So, anyway, I just think it is very amusing to me that this guy is essentially running on a platform of the mayor of London will provide more likes to nut jobs on YouTube and Twitter. More faves. We're going to get more faves for weird idiots who like ayahuasca. Not even necessarily more faves for conservatives, just more faves for cranks and weirdos.
That's something I don't get about Brian Rose, actually, is like why he's interviewing someone like David Icke, because he doesn't strike me as nuts enough for David Icke.
No, Brian Rose is nuts enough for David Icke, for sure.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, very much so.
I thought he was more garden variety idiot.
No, he's like, he has the exact same, everything about him is the same as Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And
Joe Rogan's not nuts enough for David Icke.
They're both free speech extremists, which means that they're like, on principle, want to interview David Icke because it's a free speech thing.
Right.
Yeah. So and also like Rose has already come out being like, yeah, get the vaccine if you want to, but I'm too healthy for it, which is again an identical thing that Rogan has said.
Too much of a Chad for the vaccine.
Yeah, effectively. Let's see. The other funny thing he's proposed is about transport. So the only actual real proposal he has about transport is to scrap the congestion charge and get rid of cycle lanes. Boring.
Get rid of cycle lanes is such a funny policy.
I mean, yeah, why? It's just standard stuff where it's policies for car YouTube guys. You know, just guys who are just yelling at their phone in their car. Like that's
Like
who
me.
he is for.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for you, Milo.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
So he says,
Won the coveted Milo vote.
so
That's right.
he says, new revenue streams will be identified, including further advertising opportunities for TFL, blah, blah, blah. But I will also launch a scheme building a work already carried out in Europe to look at the feasibility of introducing wireless charging for cars that are currently driving. So he's going to...
We're electrifying the road.
No, we're
electrifying the air.
We're electrifying the air, Alex.
Yeah, everyone in London gets terminal cancer in the first 3 months of Brian Rose's term.
Yeah, but they can do like an ice swim and then drink a lemongrass thing and they'll be fine.
Well, like he's trying to breed the X-Men in London by electrifying the air.
That's right.
Join me.
Yeah, very, very funny. Just a silly man. Anyway, the crown and the jewel of his policies is something called the Great Celebration, which he basically says is same as the Great Exhibition. So he wants to do like a Great Exhibition,
like a World's Fair thing.
Again, a classic stupid thing to want.
Awesome. They're going to have Stevenson's rocket there.
I want to be distracted with some jangling keys.
Yes. But to be fair, again, like, it's like, it's he's just being like, yeah, we're going to have a 31-day party, bring 20 million people into the city in August. Free music festivals, streamlining licensing restrictions, food fairs throughout London. Like, he just forgets what the mayor is able to do. It's just like, we're going to set up
as it turns out.
We're going to set up a vegan protein shake stall with our own nootropics as the mayor's office. Cool.
Yeah, that would be cool, actually.
Yeah,
I'd love to get the Brian Rose nootropics. I want to have that brain.
I love the idea of like because like the mayor has to move out of City Hall like pretty soon. That Brian Rose has decided to set up his office in like a muscle gym.
Yeah, that's right. Work out to help out.
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway, he's the only thing standing in the way of Brian Rose, this precious moron, this beautiful idiot. Getting the official TF endorsement is his position on police. So if you want that endorsement, Rose, just take the police out of the manifesto. Then we're all yours.
I love the idea that Brian Rose is just hanging out at the gym talking to the only voters who matter, meatheads.
Yeah.
Like, if you count the votes numerically, Brian Rose doesn't win. But if you count his supporters by weight, he wins easily.
Pure muscle. No, you lean body weight as well.
He's like the Soviet lamp factory.
You have to count lean body weight.
Yeah. Muscle mass.
Yeah, muscle mass. He wins handily.
Right.
Anyway, I want to talk about one last item before we move on and go about our days. This is
that our new range of nootropics?
That's right. No, it's we're doing a Blue Chew ad read.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So this is all about vaccines and vaccine distribution, and good old friend of the pod, Billy Gates.
Oh,
William Gates,
the guy who's given us all the 5G.
The guy who did that. So, he's for those of you who don't know, Bill Gates invented going on the computer in the second half of the 20th century.
And for that, we do thank him.
Yeah. And for that, he gets to decide what of the world's poorest people, which one of them get vaccines, how many vaccines do they get, and which vaccine do they get.
Not a lot, not many, and whichever one's cheapest.
Yeah, but we all voted for him to have this position when we all bought those computers that you didn't have any choice but to buy.
When we made him the president of logging on.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. He also those responsibilities are you get to be the global public health czar for your entire life. That's what happens when you invent going on the computer.
Due to an archaic rule. It's actually the same one that governs the prime minister redecorating their apartment. Yeah.
So look, this is a quote from him recently in Salon, but I believe Salon was writing about an interview he did on TV. Basically saying, look, buddy, pal, look, we have to keep all of the vaccine formulas patented and have to keep them all secret so that no one knows what they are.
It's like a KFC thing.
Yeah. Well, because he says, look, it's if we break the IP, then no one will be induced to save humanity by the profit motive, effectively. And also,
but weren't they trying to give away the Oxford vaccine before? Like, he talked them into partnering with Merck?
AstraZeneca, but yes, that's right.
AstraZeneca, whatever.
So he also, that's true. That comes up later. But he also says, look, buddy, even there are only so many vaccine factories in the world, and people are very serious.
We should stop calling me
about
buddy.
the safety of vaccines.
I find it really patronizing.
Canadian Bill Gates.
And so moving something that has never been done, moving a vaccine, say, from a Johnson & Johnson factory into a factory in India is novel.
Where lots of the vaccines are made anyway.
Well, yeah, but they have to be made in factories owned by Johnson & Johnson. Otherwise, it's,
right, okay.
you know, who knows what's going on then?
Who knows what will happen
Yeah.
to let them get their hands on it.
So he says, it's novel. It's only because our grants and expertise that can happen at all. So,
You know what else is novel, Bill Gates? The novel coronavirus.
Ayo.
Heyo. So,
Got shooters out here.
effectively, right, AstraZeneca manufactures their COVID-19 vaccine in India. It then gets shipped out of India, and apparently none of the other factories in India, according to Bill Gates, are really suitable for making it. So we should just trust him, I suppose.
Yeah, and also
they're all making stuff like Thumbs Up or I don't know.
and none of them could be made suitable either.
Oh no, no.
No,
If you ask why none of the factories are, even if you accept the premise that none of the factories are suitable, this is not the time to ask why that is. Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
No. Root causes. Come on.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that the world's richest get all of the vaccines. Well, the world's poorest are all dead of the novel coronavirus because through the and again, we're going to talk about this fucking insane vaccine distribution program that he is way too deeply involved in. They're only going to get 20% of the vaccines they need for the next couple of years.
Oh no.
20 is the same as 100, right?
Yeah, well, the thing is that the British government was so busy with railways that they forgot about vaccine infrastructure. And then India got independence, and then it was too late.
That's right.
So this kind of thing of like vaccinating part of the population at a like delayed level, that's pretty much what you want to do if you want to cause a virus to mutate to resist a vaccine.
Yes,
right?
essentially. If you wanted to say what is the number one threat to like, I don't know, humanity as a species based on the novel coronavirus, it is intellectual property laws governing vaccines.
Cool.
Don't do what Donnie